All right, so I'm just gonna do this, and I'm just gonna just pretty much do this kind of without anything written down. So I apologize if it feels kind of disjointed, but here we go. Amazing Spider-Man 2. Um, as everyone knows who has watched previous videos of mine, I loved the first Amazing Spider-Man movie. I probably was the most positive towards that movie than anyone else. I even went as far as to say I thought it was just as good, if not better, than The Dark Knight and The Avengers. And I know that sounds The Dark Knight Rises, but I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but I had my reasons, and they're in that video, and you can go to that to listen. So this is kind of a pretty big review for me, just because I had a lot of talk when it came to the first one, and the second one has come out now, and I saw it at midnight. Well, I saw it at like 10:30 because they don't have midnights really anymore, but I saw it opening night, pretty much is what I'm trying to say. And I've taken a couple days to kind of soak it in and kind of just kind of take it in, and because I know there's been quite a few movies that I gave really, really high praise for, and then after some time, I realized they're not as good as I thought. And there's a rare amount of videos in the past that I would grade lower now, but there are a few. Man of Steel is not one of them, just so people know. Because I did the same thing. I gave it more time. But this one I gave it a couple days, and I'm definitely going to go see it again. If I have any change in thought as to my opinions in this one, I will do another video because I'm going to go see it again sometime this week. And probably another 3 or 4 times because, yeah. But pretty much just before I'm going to go into spoilers, but I'll just do a quick review without any spoilers. I loved the movie. I thought it was ridiculous with the reviews it's been getting. I think it's ridiculous with the opinions people have of this movie that are very negative towards it. I think it is the best Spider-Man movie that has come out ever, over Spider-Man 2. So you can crucify me for that if you want, but that's what I'm saying. I adored this movie, and I love Andrew Garfield. I think he is the perfect Spider-Man to be playing any Spider-Man character ever. He's awesome. Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy is awesome, and the villains are incredible, and I love the way they handled 3 villains in this movie. Now, that is my short, non-spoiler review. Go see it as many times as you want. I think it's worth a full purchase at the movie theater and on Blu-ray when it comes out. Now, for the spoiler review. So I'm going to give it a few seconds. All right, so spoiler review. I went to this movie when I first saw the trailers for it. I just thought, man, it's going to be another Spider-Man 3. They already have 3 villains. They showed that poster of Spider-Man facing Times Square, and it had Electro in the middle, Rhino on the left, and above the Rhino is Green Goblin. And I just thought to myself, here we go. They're going to try to jump the gun too soon. It's going to just completely backfire in their face, and it's kind of going to suck. And a lot of people do think that, but I disagree. First off, I just want to say, am I crazy? Is there something wrong with me that pretty much the last 2 or 3 movies I've seen in theaters, superhero movies, I've loved, and everyone else has hated them? Am I crazy for that? Is there something wrong with me because I like these movies? I don't know. I'm just giving my opinion because it's kind of a rare opinion. But yeah, some people thought this was another another Spider-Man 3. I highly disagreed with that. And if you look, I think this is kind of funny. Man of Steel has like a 50-something% rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and Superman Returns has like a 63% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Amazing Spider-Man 2 has like a 50-something% rotten rating, and Spider-Man 3 has a fresh rating. I don't know the percentage. I just looked at it, but I think that's a little ridiculous in my opinion. But okay, anyways, going on to the movie. so I went into it thinking, this is going to be a really just disjointed mess of a movie, and a lot of people have thought that. And I will say, there are times, there are definitely times in the movie where there's one thing going on for like not even a minute, and then it goes to the next thing, and it shows this other story arc going on for another minute, and then it goes back to it. But I think it was the best you could handle it with the story they were trying to tell and the setup they're trying to do. What I want a lot of people to understand is with this movie, it's a lot of setup. It's a lot of bringing the universe around into this full circle that's going to create this giant thing. Mark Webb has already stated that he wanted to make a universe that he could withstand many movies, but also could tell its own stories. And that's exactly what I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 did. It has a very distinct story, tells a story of one villain, but it also sets up more. I'll just go into the villains now. I love the way they set it up, just so people know, if you haven't seen it. I'm sure you have if it's a spoiler review, but basically Electro is the main villain. I mean, he's the one that has the most focus. He's the one that is the big threat throughout most of it. Green Goblin, Harry Osborn is throughout the movie. He meets Peter. That's kind of a story arc, Harry's basically dying from the same disease that Norman Osborn has. And if people don't know this, spoilers, Norman Osborn dies. Apparently, it doesn't show it, but he dies from the disease. And he gives Harry a flash drive that kind of gives him some information on what it is. And he's in charge of the company now. And Harry finds out he's in charge, or he's hit with the same disease. So he's trying to find a cure for himself. And he asks for Spider-Man's blood. And Spider-Man says, no, I don't know, what it could do to you. It could make things worse. He said, I got to do more research. He said, I really want to help you, but I can't right now because it's too soon to just give you my blood. And that doesn't make Harry very happy, and he goes off and tries his own thing and leads to him becoming the Green Goblin. But that happens throughout the entire movie, and Green Goblin appears only at the very end with the climactic scene. Same with Rhino. The guy inside the Rhino suit, however, is at the very beginning of the movie. It's the first action sequence. He's taking a plutonium armored truck, and Spider-Man's stopping him, and he stops him and puts him in jail. And then he doesn't appear until the very, very end when Harry gives him the Rhino suit, and it ends with Spider-Man in the middle of fighting Rhino. People, for some reason, think it's the Venom idea where, we just got like 5 minutes of Venom and he's gone now and there's nothing, they just wasted him. But they did not waste these characters in this because I think it's brilliant because they didn't die. In the old Spider-Man trilogy, almost every villain that ever appeared died right after the first battle. And with this, they set it up in a universe. So, Green Goblin, he fights Green Goblin and Green Goblin fights him, but he doesn't die at the end. Rhino doesn't die at the end. Electro, that's another story, but I'm sure he will come back. And I think it's really silly when people say, well, they didn't get any screen time. Rhino got no screen time. They're setting it up for the next one, guys. They're setting it up because they realize, we can't cram all these characters in, but if we introduce them in this movie, we can set up a better character development than we had. I thought Green Goblin was the weakest out of the Spider-Man villains. All of them were weak, but I thought they were all very weak. And the reason in the old trilogy, and I think the reason they were like that is because they only had one movie to set up their origin and to set up their life. And this one starts it. It starts Harry Osborn's journey. It starts Rhino's journey, things like that. But they can take it anywhere they want now. And the other brilliant thing that no one's really thought about is, if people don't like the way the Green Goblin looks, if they want him to look closer to the actual Green Goblin in the comics, maybe they will do that. Maybe since he didn't die, they have a chance to save themselves from anything they thought they didn't do right with the character in the original. Same with Spider-Man. Spider-Man, if they thought they did some things wrong with his character, with his costume or anything, they can just do the next movie and fix that. They can do that with the villains now. Green Goblin, if they didn't like, how he looked or the way he acted or anything, voice, anything, they can do that. They can change it because you can just say, he's been upgrading to fight Spider-Man more and he's been trying to change things. Same with Rhino. Any of those things that can happen. So I am personally very, very happy about that. And I think that is a brilliant idea. Now, what people are saying is not only the villains are kind of convoluted, but the story itself. I mean, you have the villains, you have the introduction of Electro and the fighting of Electro, you have the introduction of Harry and the fighting of Green Goblin, and you have the introduction of Rhino, and then at the very end, fighting Rhino. And then not only that, you have the Gwen and Peter relationship, and then you have his searching for more answers about his parents' relationship. You have the Oscorp relationship. You have all of these stories that are kind of all happening, and that's why you're getting those like 1 minute scenes that are showing things and then going to the next and then going back and then going to another one and then going back. And I never really had a problem with it. Everyone's talking about how the story's complicated and the universe is complicated. It really isn't. You just have to keep paying attention to a movie. And I think if you're not paying attention, you're not engaged, that's a problem. And if some people had that issue, I have nothing for you. I'm sorry. But I didn't feel that way. I love the acting. I love Andrew Garfield. I love Emma Stone. You can tell they're dating in real life. Their chemistry is amazing. Andrew Garfield just is a wonderful actor. Him with Sally Field, I think her name is, who plays Aunt May. They have a really touching scene where she's talking about how, he's trying to find answers about his parents, and she doesn't want to tell him. She knows more than he thinks, and he kind of finds that out, and she doesn't want to tell him because she thinks it doesn't matter, because he is her boy. She raised him. They didn't. They left him. And it's a really touching scene. It's one of the best scenes in the movie, and Andrew Garfield nails it. She nails it. It's awesome. He just has a lot of those scenes. He's a really great Spider-Man, really likable. He ends up, there are times where he helps a bully out, and he feels like Spider-Man. He talks to the people. He's not Batman. He doesn't hide from the people. He's public, and he goes around and he helps anybody he can. And one thing I do say that I can say they do really well to show in this compared to Man of Steel is he cares about everybody. And that was the thing that a lot of people had issue with in Man of Steel, and that's the fact that, during these fights, he doesn't think about the people. And I can see that to an extent. I have arguments on that too in my review for Man of Steel, but that's not the point. I'm just saying in this it's really cool because he cares about everyone, and it shows it. In every fight scene, he does everything he can to save everybody there. And he does, for the most part, and that's why he is called the Amazing Spider-Man. He does these amazing things. So, yeah, that's awesome. Dane DeHaan, who plays Green Goblin, Harry Osborn, I think he's awesome. When I first heard about his casting, it was right after I saw Chronicle, and I thought that was perfect. And I didn't have a problem. Some people think his acting's kind of funky. It's just it's a different style. It's a different way he acts, and I think you get used to it the more into the movie you get. Emma Stone is always awesome. I kind of have a crush on Emma Stone, and she plays the perfect Gwen. I love how she's not like Mary Jane in the last trilogy where she's just always a damsel. She helps herself out. Not in that way. It's really weird. I'm not trying to sound weird, but she doesn't have to have Spider-Man helping her all the time. So I like that. I think even though I didn't see a lot of Paul Giamatti as Rhino, which we'll see later, he was awesome. He's always great. Everybody who returns is awesome. And then, of course, there's Electro by Jamie Foxx. And some people have thought he was the weakest villain. I see why people think that, but I didn't personally feel that way. He was very unique in the way he played a villain. He's very unique. I loved his character. I loved the way he became a villain. I loved the way he started out as a confused man from these powers, and before he had these powers, he was never seen. No one ever treated him right, and he started out almost good, and he was just confused. And then that whole obsession with Spider-Man is amazing, and I thought that was a really cool touch. And I love, some people hated it, but I love the dubstep that they use with it because it fits Electro really well, especially in a modern time. And if people have a problem with that, though, I totally understand. Let's see, what time are we at here? 14 minutes, okay. Yeah, I just thought everyone was really solid. I didn't have an issue with any of the acting. Most superhero movies have, one weak point, and I thought everyone was A-list when it came to that. So now I think we can go on to the final battle with Green Goblin, because everyone's been talking about that. That's kind of the biggest point, the biggest shocker. no pun intended. But basically what happens in that is after Spider-Man saves Gwen and fights Electro, he wins and you think it's over, and then Green Goblin shows up and picks up Gwen, and it starts this battle, and Spider-Man's constantly saving her throughout it, and it's kind of that whole, is she gonna die, isn't she gonna die, is she gonna die? I can tell they're trying to do it, but then he keeps saving her, so maybe they're just trying to fake you out, kind of with the bridge in Green Goblin and Mary Jane in the original Spider-Man. I wasn't sure where they were going to go with it. I didn't think they had the balls to do it, but they did it. They killed Gwen pretty much in the same way as the comic. It was a little slightly different. It wasn't on a bridge, and he caught her in a different way, and all that. But it was very similar. Fun fact: I saw on IMDb, they had a couple of different takes and different shots of this, where in some scene it was originally a longer fight, and to keep it a PG-13 rating, they had to stop. It was a very violent fight, and that would have been kind of cool to see. And then same with Gwen's death. They had a couple different versions, where one version, Green Goblin literally kills her himself and snaps her neck with his bare hands. And I thought, man, that would have been really just dark. I don't know if they should do that or not. So, I mean, if I saw it, maybe I would have had a different opinion. But as my opinion, just thinking about it, I think they went the right route, trying to make it more comic book related instead of that, because that's just wow. But yeah, it was really interesting, and I love the visuals of it. I love when it slows down. I love when he shoots the web, and the web looks like a hand reaching out instead of just a web. I love how it's kind of not short and sweet, but same idea. It's very short and quick, and kind of just happens, and it sets up the next one perfectly, because he beats Harry and loses Gwen. And you see Harry in prison, and basically what happens is Peter goes into grieving and mourning for like 5 months, and there's no Spider-Man, and crime has risen, and nobody's around, and finally after 5 months, when Rhino appears, Peter listens to Gwen Stacy's graduation speech, which is a really good speech, and I like how it ties with the first movie where he listens to the voicemail, very tech related. I thought that was really interesting. But he ends up coming back at the very end, and that's in the middle of this fight with Rhino is when it starts. But you have to watch that last scene. It's just awesome the way with Spider-Man shows up, and he has the loudspeaker, and it's awesome. I really liked that. I thought it was really touching. I thought it ended on the perfect note for me. But Harry, he's in prison, and the man at the end credit scene or mid credit scene of the first Amazing Spider-Man shows up. The man in the shadows is what they call him. And he's basically just talking about how he has more plans for everybody, and they're basically setting up the Sinister Six. And he kind of breaks Harry out, and Harry gives the Rhino suit to what's his face, the Russian guy. I don't know his name, but it's just perfect. And so you're gonna have this next movie where Peter is just gonna be torn with, just like in the comic books, with his best friend Harry, who he could relate to, who's just lost it, and he has vengeance in his and revenge in his heart because he killed Gwen, but he also still has that friendship in him. It can go anywhere, and I think that's awesome. So I'm excited. I'm really happy about how this movie turned out. I really enjoyed it. I have nothing to say about people who don't like it. The one thing I have noticed is with Man of Steel, people had specific arguments. And with this one, I realized a lot of people who didn't like it either just didn't like it because they just didn't like the feel of it, or they didn't like the pacing or the story. And they didn't really argue it and back it up very well, and I think that was kind of silly. But I don't know, guys. You can crucify me if you want for liking this movie. You can crucify me for having these opinions, but they are my opinions, and I'm sorry for that if it offends you. But I'm sorry. They just are these last couple of superhero movies I've seen are just amazing to me, and no one's looking at them in the same light as me. So maybe I'm seeing something different. I don't know. Yeah, so that's all I got on that. I mean, critics can talk about it as much as they want, but they've already set up Spider-Man 3. They've set up a Sinister Six coming out. They already have a date set for the next Spider-Man movie, so there's not much they can say. They're making their money, so we'll have to see how the next one goes, Um, but yeah, I personally enjoyed the movie. Besides the darker parts of it, like Green Goblin and Gwen dying, this is a very colorful Spider-Man movie. His suit is awesome. It's the closest suit I've seen to anything um, in the comic books, and just the way he acts in the suit, he is Spider-Man, and it's awesome to finally see that because I never thought Tobey Maguire quite reached that. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you are a Spider-Man fan, you're obviously going to see it without this review. But if you're not a Spider-Man fan, or if you feel like you've seen all the trilogy and you're not really wanting to go back to Spider-Man again, take a look at this one because it comes at you in a different angle, and maybe you'll like it like I did, or maybe you won't. Seems like recently it's very split down the middle, but yeah, definitely go see this movie. I think it's by far the best Spider-Man movie in my opinion, and I think it's up there with one of my favorites. I just have to say I went with my girlfriend, and she's seen Iron Man 3 with me, Man of Steel with me. She saw this with me. I think a few others, and we've watched a lot of the superhero movies. She saw Amazing Spider-Man with me, and this is the movie that I've never seen her act in so intrigued with a movie as she did with this one. She loved it, and she never really quite said who her favorite superhero was because she's not like a big fan like I am, but she's into it. And she finally said Spider-Man is her favorite, which, Superman's mine, but I love how she finally was able to find one just through that movie. If it went that far to touch someone and really make them see the light of that, really they like them so much that they're their favorite now, it's doing something right. It has to be, because and she's not even a huge comic book fan. She's very intrigued with Spider-Man now, wanting to read the comics. It got her into that, and if it does that, it's doing its job. So, people can talk about how bad it is as much as they want, but there are people out there who are seeing it, or seeing something in it that are really going to make them change their perspective in a good way. So, yeah, I'm excited to get it out on Blu-ray. I love the way it's going. I love the way the series is going. I love the twists. There's a lot of other twists I didn't talk about, especially with the ways Peter becomes Spider-Man and the secrets to his parents. And all I have to say is I think it's a cool route that changes it, but not too much. And if you haven't seen it, go see it. If you loved it, go see it again. I'm going to go see it again at least one more time, probably two, maybe three. I don't know, depending on how free I am, how free time I have, how much free time I have. But yeah, so that's all I got to say.